Hello friends, I am back here today for a very special episode with you guys, answering all of your questions. I asked on my Instagram what are some questions that you had for me, and you guys did not disappoint. You had so many, so I am here today to answer all of them for you. First and foremost, you can find me on Instagram and Ravelry as Julienne Knitter. And as always, all the links to everything I talked to are down below this video. I don't think there's going to be much links today, but at least a link to my Ravelry shop, my Instagram, as well as my newsletter. If you're ever interested in finding out about my pattern releases, you can definitely sign up there. I'm not going to waste any time. We are just going to dive right into answering your questions. There was a lot. There was two main subjects, colorwork and designing. I'm going to be answering your design questions, but colorwork, I'm saving all of those because I'm going to be doing a separate video on colorwork knitting, just because I do get a lot of that question, and I would love a separate video just on that to be able to reference knitters to that. So if you have extra questions on colorwork, please list them below this video, and when I do my other one, I'll make sure to include your amazing questions in that too. Got my water, I got my laptop here with all the questions, so if I look down here, I'm just reading off the questions. First up is, what is ease? Do most patterns include this? All right. When someone talks about ease in a garment, it just means how the garment will fit. So ease can either be positive or negative ease. The ease is just literally means the fit. So if someone says that the garment is supposed to be fitting with positive ease of 2 to 4 inches, what that means is the final garment should fit 2 to 4 inches bigger than your current bust size. If someone says your finished garment should finish with 2 to 4 inches of negative ease, that means that the finished garment should fit 2 to 4 inches less than your current bust. So when you see almost all of my patterns are about 2 to 4 inches of positive ease, because that is what I like. So you see, for an example, my shirt here, how loose it is. This has positive ease because it is bigger than what I currently am. If there's no ease at all, this means that the garment will be fitting exactly to my measurements. And negative ease just means, it's gonna suck me in and be tight. So it just means, is it gonna be loose on you, regular fit, or tight? Do most patterns include this? Most patterns should always include a schematic, and that just means it shows you a picture of the sweater and just says, okay, from your bust, it should fit here to here. Your neck should fit here to here. Your arm, those should always be included in a good pattern for you, because you need to know what size to knit. Now, that is another question that I do get often is, how do I figure out the size that I want to knit? The best way, if you're brand new to garment knitting, is to find a sweater in your closet, t-shirt, whatever, and measure that across, and obviously double it because you're going to be doing the circumference of your bust. Figure out the fit and size of that one, and then use that in whatever patterns that you're going to be knitting up. If you know that, for an example, I am about a 35-inch bust, I like at least 36, 37, I do like about 2 inches of positive ease. So I do know when I'm gonna go knit a garment that I'm not gonna be going for size 34, or I'm not gonna be going for a size 40. I know where I like my garments, and that's what I'm gonna do. Look when you buy the pattern, the schematics, look at what the instructions say. Does it say that there's ease? And if you are unsure and you've checked the pattern, make sure you check the notes, the patterns, the Ravelry project page. If it's not listed anywhere, email the designer. They should be providing the size, the schematics, and all of those for you. So hopefully that answers your question on what is ease. All right, now the big one, designing. I got, first, where does your design inspiration come from? That is a big question because every design is different. I absolutely love taking inspiration from things that I like and things that I like to wear. For socks, it could be from anything. So I do have a few things that I like doing. For an example, I have some polar bear socks, and that inspiration, I was reading a book to my twins, and literally I just saw some polar bears and I thought, wouldn't that be super cute on a pair of socks? And then I decided to chart it up. It's not as complicated as people make it seem. As long as you're not copying anybody else, do you, do what you like, and find inspiration from what inspires you. For me, it's my family, my twins. You know, I see things, or sometimes I'll go in a store and I see something, I'm like, ooh, I like the construction of that. But then my brain goes, okay, I would switch this, I would do that. Okay, that I would like better here, and this, I like these colors. So I never try and copy something. I never try and but I will take inspiration from whatever garment, or let's say I see a picture and there's beautiful colors meshed all together. I'm like, ooh, that could be a beautiful sweater. And then I start picturing it in my own head. It's really hard to explain, but it's not something where I say, okay, I'm gonna go on Ravelry and I'm gonna go, look at a sweater and then try to copy that. That is not anywhere near, and you shouldn't do that. Really find inspiration with what inspires you. I know some people, it's like the trees and the nature inspires them. So it's really all up to the designer and how they choose. So me, it's really, I would say family. Family is a huge, huge part. And the second one would be, my biggest one is I just look into my Stitch dictionaries. So I have a few of them, and I just look through and I put Post-it notes. And I'm like, ooh, I like that one. And then I look at another one, I'm like, ooh, I like that one too. And then maybe if I put them together and maybe I did this. And it's really not a to Z process. It really can come from anywhere and can do anything. And sometimes an idea, literally, I've woken up in the morning or in the middle of the night with an idea. Like, no joke. I've dreamt about something and I'm like, oh my God, I need to write it down. My husband thinks I'm bonkers, but it happens where I'm like, oh, that's what I need. I need to do that. And sometimes I also find that when I get the yarn, I'm like, I don't know 100% what I'm gonna do. And when I have the yarn in front of me and my needles and I start swatching, that's when I figure it out. I'm like, this is how it's gonna work together. This is what's gonna work, because I find touching, feeling the yarn, it's really important in my design process. How did you begin your designing journey? Out of nowhere. I did not expect to design. I did not plan on designing. I definitely did not plan on designing garments. I love knitting garments, but it definitely came out of nowhere. I had some yarn and I just really wanted to try it up. I tried a pattern and I thought, you know what? I kind of like this. Maybe other people like it. And that was my changing season socks pattern. So I did that, and yeah, I just started from there. And then after that one, I really loved it. And there was actually people purchased it, which I was like, oh my God, I'll be happy if one person purchases it. And then I knit another one and then another one. And it started from there. It wasn't complicated. I never planned on it. And I think that was the fun of it, is that I never really planned on becoming a designer or designing knitwear patterns. It was never something that I'm gonna say, I'm gonna sit here and do this. I did it because I love it. I did it because I love knitting. And I thought, well, I'm a stay-at-home mom. I don't have a lot of income. Maybe if I can do this on the side, I can pay my yarn, great. But if not, at least I'm knitting things that I love. So it was never a thing of, I gotta do this for money or I have to do this. It was really out of love, and if people liked my patterns, great, and if they didn't, well, at least I know that I did. So I think that really comes from that. This question probably came up 5-6 times. What is your designing process? Pretty much the same as the design inspiration. My design process usually is, I do have sometimes full ideas. For some sweaters, I get the full idea and I have a notepad and I jot it down. So I'll do a sketch and I'll say, okay, this is what I like. This is kind of the hem length. This is the type of yarn that I think I'm going to go with. This is kind of the stitch pattern that I'm thinking in my head. So I will do that, and then I'll see from there what I like. Because sometimes I find when you have a pattern in mind, you get the yarn and you start knitting it up, it maybe won't go together. It's not what you envisioned, because I've had to rip out a few times. It's just not what I envisioned in my head. So my design process is very different, but what I will say is I cannot design on the fly. Now what that means is I can't cast on something and not write anything down. I am a super crazy person, and I will actually write down, so I will do a swatch. And this I'm talking about a sweater. I will do a swatch. I will block it and I will measure out my gauge, and I will grade the entire pattern. I will do the charts, I will grade, and I will do everything, because if I finish a sweater and for some odd reason my math will not work for the larger sizes, I think my hair will go gray and I will pull them all out, because math sucks. There is no better word, but math sucks. I'm sorry, people, if you, I can't, I struggle with that aspect of it. So for me, I'm a crazy person, and I grade the entire pattern before I even start knitting it. So then I'm kind of knitting along with the pattern, and I find more comfortable. That's what I like to do. So that is kind of my design process. Knitting on the fly, I can do it a little bit with socks, because I've knit so many socks that the construction is the same. It's just changing up a stitch pattern. But even at that, no, I do a chart. Yeah, that's my design process. I'll design whatever in advance. I'll write up the pattern and then knit from my pattern. And if it doesn't work out, well, then I go back to my drawing board, figure everything out, write up another pattern. Okay, try this one, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of how that goes. How did you learn to design your own patterns? By myself. I do get this question a lot. I can get some direct messages and people saying, I want to design patterns, where do I start? There's no manual. There's no magic answer that I can give you that says, okay, here is how you're gonna knit sweaters, this is how you're gonna design this is how you're gonna design that, here you go, check out these references, this is how you're gonna do it. There is no manual that I know of. If there's one, please put it below. It would have made my life so much easier. You really learn as you go. I've knit garments for years. I've been knitting for 8 years now. I definitely would never have tried designing at the start of my knitting journey, because I didn't know enough. I didn't know, I wouldn't have felt confident. So it's really trial and error, really research, go on different platforms, use the Craft Yarn Council measurements for if you're doing sweaters and garments, use those measurements. Make sure that you find a really good tech editor. Make sure, that's another important thing, get a tech editor. Don't think that your patterns are perfect without tech editing. Tech editing matters. If you're asking what a tech editor is and, oh, I have test knitters, I'm fine. No, get a tech editor. They will look over your pattern. If you have any math errors, they will look for your grammar errors. They will look after everything for you. Your formatting, your grammar, your math, consistency, your everything. And they are there for you throughout the way. So if you are planning, and they will really go thoroughly because you are paying them to do it. Whereas test knitters, they may not catch everything. This person is there for you to catch all of those errors for you. So especially if you're going to be doing paid patterns, I would highly, highly recommend you do not publish a pattern without it being tech edited. Yeah, designing my own patterns, you guys, it's a trial and error. It really is. There's some patterns I've tried writing up and I've tried designing that just didn't work. I think you need to know knitting. You need to understand garment construction. You need to knit up. Like, if you've never knit a garment, don't try designing one. That's what I'm saying, is make sure you design also what you like. And my biggest thing, if I could give you guys any type of advice, is design what you want. Not what you think others want. Design what makes you happy, and don't do it for the money. Do it because you want to do it. I think that's what I take the most out of all of this is If people love you and love your designs, then they will follow you and purchase your patterns. But if you have to design things that you don't like, just because you're trying to sell something, it won't work. You're not going to be happy, and you're not going to enjoy the designing process because you're not doing things that you like. So now I've shifted a lot of my things of, okay, what could I wear? Like garments, what is something that I really, really, really love that I could live in? And that's how I'm designing now. More. I'm really more focused. Not that I wasn't before, but now it's really more narrowed. Okay, what do I want to do? What do I want to design? What do I don't want to design? And what do I don't wear? Those types of things. So I really make sure that before I take on any collaboration or project, I'm saying, okay, do I actually want this? Would I wear this? Would I knit this? Do I enjoy knitting this? Those are all questions you really need to ask yourself before you start designing. How do you find time to knit with little children? I get that question a lot too. So I have twins. I have twins. And they are going to be 2.5 in July. And they have been running around since they were crawling at 9 months. No, they were crawling at 7 months, walking at 9 months, and by 10 months they were running. I have 2 very active toddlers. I am very thankful that they are close and they love spending time with each other. They love being with each other, playing with each other. I have 2 different play areas. So I have one upstairs where we normally are throughout the day. And then I also have one downstairs. We actually just took out our pool, so we have a nice closed-in fence yard that I can bring the girls. Also, they sleep about 11 hours a night, so we put them to bed around 6:37, and they sleep till 6:30 the next morning, which means from like 7 to 10 o'clock at night, 9, whatever time I'm awake, I get full knitting time. As well, throughout the day, I am a stay-at-home mom with them, so I get knitting time. Some days, there's nothing at all. Like, I don't get a single thing, and some other days, they love playing with each other. I set up kind of stations for them. So sometimes in the living room, I'll put a big blanket and then I have their books in a corner. I'll have sketch pads. Like, I will set up these things so that they don't get bored and they can play with each other as well. Yeah, my girls are good. I really can't complain with that. Some days, like I said, I can't knit, and today I knit about an inch or 2, but that was it on my sweater. Like, it wasn't like a huge knitting day. So, yeah, some days I get a ton. The other thing that I can say, knit when you can. So pretty much my knitting bag travels with me everywhere. Might be annoying as heck, but I gotta get it done. So in the morning, when I get my morning cup of coffee, it's like, okay, start knitting. Get my knitting. If we are just sitting down, the girls are playing on the floor, where's my knitting? Like, it's an automatic thing. Now, I'm gonna put out there, I don't ignore my children. There is a rule in my house. If they want to cuddle, read a book, or they absolutely love rocking in the rocking chair, I will put anything I have down to spend that time with them, because I think reading is so important, cuddling them is so important, or if they want me to play with them, I will always put it down. But I think I am lucky in the sense that there are 2 of them and they love spending a lot of time with each other. So, and sometimes they'll go in their playroom and they just shut the door on me, and it's a full baby proof, the entire thing. It's only their toys, and they'll shut the door and maybe they'll play there sometimes for half hour. That morning, it's glorious. I just sit there with my cup of coffee and I hear them play. I'm on the same floor and I'm like, I could get used to that. And then 2 seconds later, one of them comes out and starts like toppling over, and anyway, it ain't always perfect. All right, let's keep going. What was your favorite knit you've ever made? I don't know. I absolutely loved my Benton pullover by Julie Hoover. That one I've worn, oh my God. I made that years ago and I've worn that thing to death. I made it out of Knit Pick Stroll tweed, and it's the softest thing ever. Absolutely love that one. I love my winter trees. I love my Be Still that I just finished out of a silk and linen, super fun. I have a ton. I love my cold winter night socks. Those are probably one of my favorite that I've designed and knit. Yeah, I love those. For that one, the design inspiration was literally I wanted a pair of green socks with the white trees. It was something I had seen in my head, and I just thought, I need that. I couldn't find it anywhere. I looked on Ravelry, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to just design it myself. So yeah. What was the first project that you made and you realized that you loved knitting? Ooh, that's a good one. I think socks was the first thing I ever made that I really realized. But I think when I dove into serious knitting, if you want to call it that, I knit out of Madeline Tosh. I knit a Grace cardigan. I've actually knit 2 of them. And it was my first garment ever. If I can, I'll put a photo up here. It's the one I get the most compliments on. And it is, when I finished that, it was my first garment ever, and I finished it and it looked amazing. That's when I realized, okay, I'm done. I'm in this. I love knitting. It's amazing. Look what I was able to accomplish. I think that was maybe like my most accomplished knit. My grandmother used to say a saying in French, ça mit un plume sur mon chapeau. It put a feather in my hat. Like, it was just that, wow, I did this. So that one. What for you is the perfect gauge to knit socks? I've usually varied between a 34 to 36 stitches per inch by 4 inches for socks. That's usually my patterns. Do you use Knitter's charting graph paper for your colorwork, or computer, or an app? For colorwork knitting, I use Stitch Mastery, which is a paid-for application on your computer. Absolutely love it. 100% worth the money because you can do lace charts, colorwork. Usually what I will do is I will open that up and I get an idea of what I want in my head, but I will play around for an hour or so at a perfect knitting chart, and I will do all of my work there. What is the most difficult for you knitting and / designing? The math. The math. I hate it. If there be no math for garments, oh my gosh, the world would, math. All right. Do you use a tubular cast on? No. My favorite is a long tail cast on. I think it's because that's the one my grandmother used to use, and I just took it from her, and she only did the long tail cast on. I think I'll get out of my face soon, but I don't know, it just brings me back to her. She passed away about 4 or 5 years ago, but she was a huge inspiration in my knitting. When knitting for your daughters, how much bigger do you knit for them? I will knit, so I have tiny girls. They were born a little bit smaller, in the 4 or 5 pounds. So the girls are not, they're taller, but they're slimmer. So I knit usually 1 size bigger. The reason is because I want things to continue fitting. So the girls are, I say 1 size bigger. The girls turned 2 in January, and I knit them sweaters, the little ones faded, out of the 2 to 4 year old size. Because right now the girls, even though they're 2 and some, they still wear, the 2 year old sizes. Like they're petite. So I usually knit up to 1 size bigger for that, because they grow so fast, and I would rather, if they wore it now, that I could just pull up the sleeves, and if it's a little bit longer on them, it's a little tunic length. So I think it really depends on the child and how they fit and that, but you can never go wrong with making something bigger. Depends on the seasons as well, but yeah. Do you use budget yarns? And if so, what are your favorites? Absolutely. All-time favorite budget yarn, Knit Picks. I've worked with them. Their yarn, absolutely amazing. And I'm going to be doing more collaborations with them because I do want to design with more budget yarns and budget-friendly yarns in the future. So that is coming. For socks, sorry, I recorded something before this for about a half hour, so like my throat is. Favorites for socks would have to be Patton's Croy, Regia, Opal, Knit Picks. I think those, absolute favorite. Garments for children, Barocco, amazing. Knit Picks, Cascade. I think those would be my budget friendly yarns. Absolutely love Barocco for the girls. Knit with them all the time. I'm also going to be knitting with Knit Picks a lot. Yeah, really love those. Those would be my top ones. I'm not a yarn snob. I love commercial yarns. You've seen me knit with them on my podcast. I absolutely love gifting them as well. So really love those. Oh, it's getting a little dark out. I've been recording for a while. What is your favorite thing to design? Socks and sweaters. It just is. I'm obsessed with sweaters at the moment. I'm going through a full sweater kick. So that one is it. All right, what do we have next? Tips for Farrell. I'll be going through that. How did you start designing? We went through that. Yeah, I think that's all. We went through, and I feel like it got darker since we started. But I hope that you guys love that. Ooh, got a little darker. I hope that you guys love that little segment of the Q&As. If you have any more questions, please list them down below this video. Or I also have a Q&A thread in my Ravelry group, and I would love to answer these questions. But like I said, tips and tricks for colorwork knitting is going to be a separate video and going to be coming to you soon. I was going to say shortly and soon at the same time. I think it's time for me to log off. As always, guys, happy knitting. Bye.